All right, let's get into this. This is the story of Arshay Cooper, and it's about how a sport completely changed his life. But we're not just talking about winning races here. It's really about the lessons he learned, about trust, about teamwork, and about finding a purpose that was way, way bigger than any finish line. To really get Arshay's story, you have to start right here. We're talking about the west side of Chicago in the 90s. As a kid, he saw things that honestly, no one should ever have to see. Violence wasn't just on the news, it was the backdrop of his daily life, to the point where he started to wonder if there was any good left in the world at all. And this is the central question of his whole incredible journey, right? How does a kid, surrounded by nothing but concrete and chaos, find hope, find a future, really, in a world that seems completely and totally out of reach? Well, the answer is pretty unlikely, and it's seriously inspiring. Growing up, Arshay learned how to navigate this world of constant threats. He said he would just articulate his pain through silence, basically burying all that trauma deep down because there was no one to really talk to about it. That silence became his shield, his only protection in a world that didn't offer many others. Now, you might think, well, any sport would be a good escape. But for Arshay, that just wasn't the case. He was athletic, yeah, but sports like football or basketball just didn't work. The feeling of being chased on the field, that brought back the trauma of literally running for his life on the streets. And the trash talk in basketball, it just felt way too personal. He needed something that would calm the storm inside him, not make it worse. And then, everything changed. One day, this totally strange thing just appears in his high school cafeteria, this long, impossibly skinny boat. It was an invitation to a world he didn't even know existed. At first, nobody was interested. Arshay and his friends were literally joking that this white lady showing up and saying, "Join my crew," was basically just trying to start a new kind of gang. But then, a simple sign went up, "Free Chicago Pizza." And just like that, a huge line formed. That simple promise of pizza was the hook, and it led to the first all-black high school rowing team in the entire country. And you know what? Just getting on that bus every single day was life-changing. He put it this way: to go from seeing dirt and concrete every day to water and grass mentally changes things for you. This was way more than learning a sport. For Arshay, it was his first real introduction to wellness. But it was anything but easy. I mean, their own community was skeptical. A lot of people were actually scared of the water. They got taunted with people calling rowing a slave ship sport. Even at their own boathouse, they felt like outsiders, totally ignored by the established private school teams. But all of that, it just made them stronger. It gave them the shared goal. They were going to prove everybody wrong, and they were going to do it together. So after graduation, you'd think Arshay's life would be all about rowing, right? Nope. He hung up his oar and decided to follow a totally different passion, trading in the boathouse for the kitchen. And he wasn't just good at it, he was incredibly successful. He went to the famous Lee Cordon Bleu Culinary School and built this amazing career as a personal chef for huge clients like the WWE and Warner Brothers. He was traveling all over the country, living a life he couldn't have even dreamed of just a few years before. He actually has this great story about a run-in with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Apparently, Arshay told him chicken breast wasn't on the menu. And, well, he learned a pretty valuable lesson that day. When The Rock wants chicken breast, The Rock gets chicken breast. It's just a funny little moment that shows how completely different his new world was. Then, years later, he's giving a speech at a school, and a student asks him this really simple but powerful question. And it just stopped Arshay cold. He realized he was standing there in front of all these kids who were just like him, describing this amazing experience, but he wasn't giving them any way to try it for themselves. He called it offering hope with borders, and he knew in that moment he had to do more. And that one question from that one student, that was the spark. It's what called him back to the water. Not just to relive his own past, but to build a future for thousands of other kids. It was the very beginning of a real movement. And once that spark was lit, wow, things just took off. He started an indoor rowing program, he self-published his memoir after every single major editor rejected it, and then that book somehow found its way to a filmmaker. By 2020, his story was an award-winning documentary, and by 2021, a national foundation was launched. And get this, the foundation itself started with a phone call completely out of the blue. A man who'd read an article about Arshay offered to donate $250,000. But there was one condition. Arshay himself had to be the one leading the work. He had to put his own hands on it. With that seed money, his mission became crystal clear. He wanted to find programs for kids in under-resourced communities and give them the tools they needed to actually compete. And that meant more than just giving them some old, used boats. It meant top-tier equipment. It meant professional coaches, not just volunteers. It meant funding for swimming lessons, for travel, for mentorship. Everything you need to level the playing field. And I think his philosophy here is so important. He's not trying to erase the history or the traditions of a sport like rowing. His goal is to expand the boathouse, to add more color, more different backgrounds, and more stories to the sport. It's all about inclusion and growth. But out of all the lessons rowing taught him, Arshay says the most important one was the lesson of the coxswain. So the coxswain is the person in the boat who steers and guides the crew. They can see the finish line when the rowers who are facing backward can't. He realized his parents, his teachers, his coaches, they were all his coxswains in life. They were guiding him, seeing what he couldn't see, and steering him safely to where he needed to go. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. We all have our own boat to row, and we all face challenges that we can't always see coming. So the question is, who are the people guiding you? Who's seeing that finish line for you and helping you get there? Who's the coxswain in your boat?